Lions, how you doing? How you doing? Happy 4th of July to all the US Lions. Happy Friday to all the other Lions. All right, let's dive in. You guys ready? Who here has never used TPO at all? So we got our profiles. And in market profile, you got the volume profile and TPOs. A lot of times we don't look at one or the other. Want to keep it clean. You can adjust the settings all you like. Auto tick size when you switch between tickers or assets, pairs. It's going to adjust quite a bit. So I got a whole mess going on right here. Click that off the screen and nice and clean. So about the same between Binance and perps and spot. So you'll see a pretty good difference when I select manual. Okay. I did not change the TPO settings at all. Tick size varies between the pairs, so it's going to affect the way that your profiles look. So if you take it off of manual, it's going to do that. So you have letters that are printed for each 30-minute period in the day. 30 minutes for y'all game show chads that were crushing it with all the TPO questions. You know that that's the pretty standard time frame that people look at TPO. Okay, so all the letters, they represent time periods in the daily session. Leo started learning TPO 3 weeks ago. JLaugh, what's up? Okay, so in the default in TradingView, it shows the profile and it color codes it for the session, kind of like a heat map through time periods of the day. So you can tell where price moved during different parts of the session. Since there are 48 periods in a day and there aren't 48 letters in the alphabet, we move to lower cases in later periods. Okay, and one thing that is useful, we'll talk about the volume profiles accompanying our TPO blocks in a few minutes, but one thing that's useful is to kind of hide that away if you want to study just the attributes of the profile itself. And that can be a lot of juice for you alone. So turning off our volume profile, and let's just look at the profiles with very little other noise. So you can have different shapes of the profiles. You notice that one of them looks kind of like the letter B. Game show people might have seen a question about that. Kind of a letter D. It's kind of a standard distribution. And then you have one that is really skinny. And that's pretty common on trending days. And you can see the price action corresponding with that session was quite a decent little movement. That was the other day when we moved from like 105 up to 109, 110 almost. So it stretches out the profile when price moves over a wide range in a session. Here we got another D style, a little bit of a B, but more consolidated at the base. And you really will build out wider profiles if we have long consolidations. Can anybody in chat tell me what happens when we have a consolidation? How about when one side or the other begins to falter. What happens if we begin to consolidate for some period of time and it moves out of this area of consolidation? So you see I have value areas marked on here. This is where the majority of the time in the session trades. How about right there? Let's zoom in on that. So we have a whole lot of blocks in this area, and remember those blocks each represent time in the session or time periods in the session that price traded. So the majority of the time in the session we traded through here, and you see some flat edges in a couple places. Those are called ledges. So just remember that. I'm going to turn on candles, and I'm going to box out where we had those couple little areas. So there's one right there also. It doesn't look as nice over here, but up here it's kind of an area that we traded for quite some time in the session. Agreed? So what happens when we begin to break below one of those areas? It's kind of just another way to look at support and resistance. Like here, we started to close outside and failed to break back into it. So no acceptance. It's really just another way to look at price action. These bright color profiles really kind of are the most to me, but you know, it kind of demonstrates the shape, highlights it pretty well. We have value areas. So again, that's where price spends 70% of the time, or really 68.2% of the time in a session. Point of control, the most TPOs, the most 30-minute periods in the session. And you can do kind of a lot with the trading view indicator. I'm not trying to sell it, but there is quite a bit that you can do. Now, there are a few other attributes of the profile that just jump out to us. Yeah, I like that. Hit them with the beats. So we have some areas that you see highs. I mean, see areas during that session that price traded. And it's kind of a cool way to break up your dailies as well, to refer to where the new opens are. The profile just kind of aligns with the daily open. If we're really just focusing on the profile, you can see it better with this color combination. You can see a white bar along here. That represents the initial balance. So for A and B period, the first two 30-minute candles in the session, that is where price traded. So it kind of marks it there. There's other things that can mark it, but you know, this is kind of an all-in-one tool. And I didn't select daily on here, and I did not select the midpoint, which is something else that's pretty nice to refer to on your profile, and it still keeps your chart pretty clean. So it's always nice to have the daily open as a reference point for a daily session, and then the midpoint, you know, it's the 0.5. there is a free one on TradingView. There's definitely little tricks around it. Some people have made some pretty decent indicators, and sometimes combining them can get the job done too. And then of course there's Addis, which is a free software that you can use TPO with, and it's a really cool tool also. Ledges, support, and resistance. Bob Ross of TPO. Yep, happy little TPOs. If you make a mistake, that's just a bird. Okay, you notice that there's an area right here, that there is only one row of TPOs. So single TPOs in between areas that are wider in the profile. That's what we call a single print. And this is set at $70 rows. It's 7,000, I think. Let's see here. Yep. So it's $70 rows. That's where a single print is. And that is one period in the session, 1 30-minute period that price traded and did not trade again. And what did price do when we came near to the single print? So, oh, clap, clap. I missed the daily open. You know I'm always celebrating that. So these are in $70 increments. That's our row size. You can measure it with the measurement tool if you're unsure, especially if you're translating this to altcoins and you want to be like really particular about your row size. Really, most of the time on alts, I just keep it in auto, but I'm really picky about my Bitcoin. But you see that there's kind of a consolidation, and down below we have a distribution. This is called double distribution day, marked by some sort of expansion between the two areas. And this narrow area is called a single print, and often they can form areas of support or resistance. So it didn't form until price broke through there, and it will remain a single print until price, either in this session or in later sessions, returns to it. Hedge funds, you mean the ticks per row? It's really a matter of preference. So some people like to see the single prints highlighted very clearly, and they'll reduce their number of ticks per row. Some people are going to look at highs and lows and want a bit more breadth, larger rows to kind of smooth out the noise at the highs and lows. But there really is no right way to do it. You know, the larger the profile, or the larger your row size, we'll go down to 2,000. The less features you're going to see, but you can use it for some other things. And if you're not exclusively trading with TPO, reduced it down to $20 rows. And still it wasn't that far off where the single print was. Now truly our single print is there to here. So it doesn't quite catch it perfectly, but it's close enough. And mostly in trading, you are kind of it's not the greatest idea to just mark one exact price. Most of you have found this over time, that you can't just mark one exact price and expect to get the pixel bottom unless your name is KIMBA, or the pixel top unless your name is KIMBA. A lot of you are amazing traders, and I know that you know what you're doing. You're probably actually able to do that, but mostly we're looking for ranges anyways, zones of interest rather than the exact price number, because a lot of times you do that and you're gonna miss the train. Single prints can be like magnets, yeah. Unfi USDC perps 50 cent, huh? 1 cent ticks. Yeah, well, you can't go down really much less than $20 rows in TradingView. It'll take it maybe down to like 17, 16, but then you get too much information for the calculation, even with their official indicator. Yeah, some other platforms will allow more precision, but you don't really need to focus that much on the precision. And that was something I found kind of through nerding out super hard over a couple of years. People don't really talk about that. They just kind of brush it off and just kind of figure that people will learn it on their own or just come to the conclusion on their own by trial and error. For tick preferences especially, people use it not as the exclusive tool, it's for confluence. But there are people that use it exclusively. I want to do one more thing with this to show our single print, how it actually formed, and split it out. Okay, I'm going to go to this so we don't have the candles bogging us down. There's our daily open, so that whole session from here to here. That's where we traded. And following that split TPO, there is one area that price only traded once. So if you're on your exchange and you really are trying to nail your precision entries, like some people will look for retests of single prints as an area of support or resistance, and that actually during momentum plays can be a great strategy, at least an area to look for positions. You might look at this as shorting the bottom after we broke structure. Depends on how aggressive and how proficient you are with your risk management. But if you are on your exchange and don't have TPO tool, especially if you're trading something other than like Binance, what I have on the chart, maybe BLOFIN or MEXC or KCEX, WEEX, one of our other great exchanges that we like to use, then you maybe don't have access to TPO when you're trying to place your orders. So what you can do is mark your dailies. So you mark your daily open and just look for where the single print was, or look for where price only traded once. And that area through here, you can mark it yourself. You just draw a box. There, place your orders. Now the reason that we may have some support or resistance at these single prints is really the aggression of the move that forms them. This is price expansion away from a consolidation with little support or resistance because of the way that we moved up here in the first place. We had value area, break it, fail, retest, expand away. Broke some lows. That was That was cheeky, wasn't it? Does TPO give you more confluence alongside? I like TPO better than fair value gaps just because it is for a daily session, unless you're looking at like larger fair value gaps to me. Yeah, and I look at single prints as more aggressive or formed by more aggression. Okay, I'm gonna get that off of here, but that's pretty cool. So, you know, that's an area of volume, but on that breakdown, ooh, I'll keep that out. I'm gonna get rid of this though. We're gonna look at the candle that formed it. And hopefully it works. It doesn't know. No, where delta isn't that great. Yeah, a lot of times you're going to see big orders, either buys or sells, when you have those single prints forming. I'm going to get my preferred settings up. Let's see here, which one? Yeah. Single prints, no, they're just rapid price movements. So within a daily session, if price only trades through a zone during one 30-minute period, it is a print. Forms one single TPO in the profile, and until price trades back to it, it remains. And this indicator marked it for us where I had boxed it before. I have pretty large row size on this one, but it still is in the same place. Is it confusing that I just changed colors on you? So there's our letters. Yeah, you can take some things away from it, even if you don't use TPO itself. And if you use it a lot, sometimes you can kind of see where the areas or attributes that you're looking for are forming. That's a cool thing about trading in TA, is that it doesn't always need just one tool to be able to see things or to be able to interpret the price action. Things like lows or highs, even single prints, I mean, they have a lot of similarities with fair value gaps. JLav, cool. Let's have some more nerdouts. Moses. Juicing. Professional. Yeah, I agree, hedge fund. Yep, so if you have rapid price movement in one direction, you don't form all that much support if it starts trading back in the other direction. Now, I mentioned that single prints can be areas of support and resistance, but really that support or resistance weakens the more times that price trades at it or near it. So I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but I'm trying to bring us back to single prints before I talk about highs and lows. I could talk about TPO all day, but I know that y'all don't have all night, so maybe you do. I know the Europeans are like, just get it over with. Shout out to Europeans. Shout out to the early Asian lions. And shout out to the people in the US that are here on the July. All the international lions, shout out to all you. So the single prints. Let's say that we moved really quickly up, forms consolidation, continue on further. So let's say that we came up, had a big move, filled that single print, but initially we bounced kind of above it. And during that session, it actually, let's watch it form. Oh, it needs to slow down. Yeah, slow your roll. The day was crazy. I woke up that morning and we had like, yeah, this day. There's 11 single prints. All through the night. Who of you took that pixel bottom 105.1 long? I know a couple people in PSG did. Now really, the row size is much smaller, or if the row size is much smaller, we're going to be able to see a lot more of those single prints that I mentioned. We're going to go 1950. And this is just a little Nerdout trick that I use. But sometimes by going a little bit off with the decimals or whatever for my row size, it can skew it enough for picking up a little bit more information. It's just kind of some like super geek thing that I like to do. But each one of these orange lines is auto marked for our single prints that formed in that session. Price never traded back to those areas. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at that point. And there was actually one more if you had like $5 rows. That was a really, really aggressive day. Did anybody get ran over trying to short that, or maybe this? Yeah, that's a tough one. But one of the first rules when you see a day that's trending or with single prints, that you need to be a lot more cautious when trying to fade a momentum day like that. Yeah, I'm in the dark now. I'm in the dark. There we go. Yeah, it's not a good idea, or just the probabilities are lower. Okay, well, let's just say that we came back and filled. I mean, it actually just filled one of those single prints. We need to go back. Right here. Let it calculate. Bring it nice and center. Get these things off. So we got a single print right here, right below that wick. You know, that formed in this session. This actually was a single print as it formed. And we'll zoom in a little more. Okay, generate. So as soon as this candle closes, there's going to be a single print up there also. And you see in the profile, as this is happening, you have one row of TPOs, one tiny row of TPOs, all the way up. That right here, at this point, is at the high. That's called a selling tail, but the candle hasn't closed yet. There we go. That's a nice little selling tail, at least for now, but it's not really that much different in price. About $100, which is substantial enough, but when this formed right here, those are pretty much equal highs. And in a higher time frame, if it had begun to trade back down, that might have been pretty nice for some period of time, and even this could have been. But if you pull your historical information back some, there's a naked point of control, and we had all of these highs up here, very, very, very close. And now I just want to talk about everything. So, you know, it could have pulled back, but it's playing with fire, unless you're the type that, you know, treats it as a way to have a tight invalidation, especially when you begin to break structure. Now we just filled that single print right here, and we filled that one as well. Okay, so if price begins to trade back towards a single print and tests it, the second test definitely has a higher probability of getting filled. And you may notice some orange bars are forming during the session and then very quickly getting filled. You know, it's early in the session, so these things happen all the time. But as it progresses, oh yeah, that was that big news thing. Look how close we were to that high. Who got the pixel top short? Psycho Talon, cool. Holiday. Zero sum. Smaller tick size single print. Mostly just to see them. Sometimes if I just want to see them or mark them, then I might run two profiles. So you see that I have, you know, a couple of TPOs on here. This is daily profile. It's the common way that people will chart it, but sometimes you can also look at a higher time frame profile, like weekly or monthly, and get kind of a bigger perspective of where price has spent more of its time. You could throw a volume profile on there also. I don't really think that we should. And I'm going to unexpand the block. So we have, what, a weekly profile on right now. So we have consolidation. That's pretty much a composite of all of the price action this week. And you can see some other ones. Look at that. And it looks like we traded in this range for several days. What I was talking about when we break consolidations. So you got one level right here, and pretty much one level right there. Even though value area low is down all the way there, that was a big consolidation zone. I'm going to drag this over and just kind of see what happens. And value area high, but that's the point of control. It is the area that we had the most periods trading in that session. This is the weekly session, so that prior week. You see that okay? Let me get that blue. So we consolidated in this area, and you know, if you want market structure, you might say that it's a little bit wider than that. But what happened when we broke from that area that it was, retest, break down? What happened when we came back inside it, reclaim, trade up. I would dare to guess that this area right here was probably pretty close to where the point of control was. So let's mark it. What do you think about that? Trade outside value, reclaim, retest point of control once it trades above it, form a area of weakness with pretty near equal highs, clean it up and continue. We retested the point of control. Continuation. All of us golden pocket gang waiting at the train station, watching it keep on going. I mean, I don't think that the volatility is all that low, but I guess if you look at the Bitcoin volatility index, maybe since it's been trading in the same area for a month plus, I can see it going back down there. You really don't want it losing value area though for the entire range, 103, 102. I think it's going to look a lot more bearish in that sense. A lot of consolidation towards the highs, pushing up on highs with higher lows. That's not typical for expecting breakdowns. We failed that way before, but that's just so many tests on a level, and that levels weakened the more times they are tested. Okay, I want to find one good example of a single print, and we'll talk about poor highs and any other questions I'll look at to kind of wrap it up. I've been talking forever. I know Juiciest trying to go see some fireworks and barbecue. KIMBA's already checked out, I'm sure. And he knows all this stuff. Okay, we're going to get back at 30 minutes, find a good single print to look at a test, and fill. Okay, I think maybe this one. And we'll see if it also appears in a higher row size. So let's compare this right here, and I know that it's kind of stretched out. Maybe this is going to help some. So price didn't trade in this one little zone. If you go like, wick to wick, that isn't there. Still in the same session because that marks our next day. First test, it held. But we began to trade into a single print. Now you have a higher probability of it holding if it's in the same session. If that happens in a subsequent session altogether, there is an even higher probability of it filling completely once it begins to be tested. Yeah, and I back tested for like 2 years in Bitcoin, studying this. Begins to be tested. Yeah, and I back tested for like 2 years in Bitcoin studying this. Yeah, it's like the average is 2 to 3 days for 80% of partial fills. So it's pretty impressive. Yeah, but you see we tested it, kind of partially filled it, came back in, filled it out, and then roll back over. And part of that is that's a bearish retest. You know, we had some volume through here. That kind of let the people that thought they were pixel bottom longing and then go underwater, it kind of let them off of the boat. And that's one of the reasons that bearish retests or bullish retests bounce. So it ended up filling before continuing on. You can't always count on that single print to just simply be a zone of support and resistance. Sometimes we'll just expand right through it to fill out that whole area, and they can be looked at as imbalances because it is aggression that forms those moves. Yep, okay, here's a decent one right here. Pretty aggressive move down. Come back in the next session, test a single print, and it still formed resistance. If you look at market structure here, that was resistance. But those highs chip away, clean them up. Doesn't matter if it continued after that or not. It's not really a great idea to try to short something like that, especially when you start to break back into the value area. Something that people, especially newer traders, end up learning kind of the hard way is a lot of times knowing when not to take a trade is juicier than just trying to catch every single trade. Yeah, it'd save you a lot of money. So recognizing a bad high, for example, or like a single print, and kind of expecting or anticipating what could happen can provide setups, but also can save you money from taking bad setups. Yep. Oh, I don't want that. I want this one. I'm gonna look at poor highs. So poor highs, and you got pretty large tick size. It's $70 rows, so it's not that much of a difference between them. But it is good enough for the example. So a poor high and poor low, and it looked like just about everybody in the game show. Shout out to the game show, shout out to BLOFIN, shout out to Juiciest and the talent show, by the way. I hope we hear some more of that on stream. That's gonna be great. Will the bad highs be tested again? They have a good chance of being tested, and really we just kind of look at them as an unfinished auction. You know, even if price trades away in the near term, it should be clean. The more tests you have at a level, so let's say that there's 2 tests that are very, very close to the same area, these people think that they got away with one. They really might have, and they are juicing right now. But the fact of the matter is, not only do we have this here, where we had 2 tests of a level without cleaning it, we also had that previous high that we had marked before. Okay, and I didn't magnetize, but as it was messing up the drawing tool. Didn't clean that. Now this is on Binance Spot, but Coinbase didn't clean it either, and Binance Perps didn't clean it. I know CME did, and that was part of the reasons that I think that we were able to continue on. But one of the kind of better clues that we might not return back to that level to clean it immediately is when price changes structure. And so you don't even have to look at highs and lows to understand that principle. When we change structure, that is kind of a trigger for a lot of traders that will look to enter and get on a momentum play. So let's say that we had structure right here, you know, is higher low, higher low. I mean, that's not too bad right there. And what I mean by not too bad is that we broke it again, come back, retest, expand away from it. And it's again that same idea that I mentioned about letting some of those people that think that they were getting away with one over here off of the train. And you have people that kind of aggressively entered maybe overly ambitious longers with that low right there. You know, if you're part of KIMBA gang and you're watching the YouTube highlights or here on the streams every day, you know these things, right? If you're able to nail those bottoms, if you're able to manage your risk, if you're watching, taking notes, learning, joining the PSG, nerding out in the Discord, you learn how to put your stops in profit and you're ready. You're ready if it turns around on you. Friday Night Pump Incorporated. I mean, we broke this consolidation. Broke this one too. All right, so price changes structure. Poor highs, poor lows. So was this in the same session? Really makes it seem like it is poor. I got volume profiles here too. So just for the sake of single prints, we'll go up to like $40 rows. So that was our area, and if you look at the profile, I know I got the value area looking fugly down there. Let's do 4,000. Hopefully it'll show nicer. Three TPOs, one TPO. That's your quote-unquote buying tail. It is not a good buying tail. You only have one. At least two is necessary to consider it a good high or low. If there's less, it is considered to be poor. Candles. Technically, that's a little bit higher. We even saw in the other settings that I had that there was two up here. But you need unpaired TPOs of the highs or lows, and that's considered to be at least good in that session and can produce a decent little reaction for movement away, even if price ultimately will return based on having you know, very close in price adjacent candles. Okay, so we have these two really close candles. We actually have another one right here. Came close again, building up stop loss. Where was any of your invalidations if you guys longed up here? Lower low? Especially if you took that one. Let's go, 98 Bad Bunnies. Paratel. I was just marking lows, zero sum gamer, lows and highs. Cachoeira. Yeah, of course, Cachoeira. Yeah, I mean, it juiced. It juiced. Hopefully, some of you guys took profits and didn't hold the entire thing for the break of those highs. That's a Cachoeira. So it held. The interesting thing is, while price may return to it at some point, and it does have a tendency to happen sooner if moves are especially bullish or especially bearish, or the trend is, sometimes we can leave it behind, and a great way to kind of anticipate that is if it changes structure. So you got to combine TPO with other information or other tools to really unlock its potential. Mosley, for sure. I'm thrilled to be here. I love talking about this. You know, I'd like to nerd out on this all the time and get to share it with all of you. Yeah, it's a real treat. Yeah. Shout out to KIMBA. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share this with you. It's so much fun. You know, I love this. You guys wouldn't be here on a Friday night if you didn't love this too. So shout out to y'all grinding, learning, or just supporting. How do I know that the price finds a bottom there? Because of the TPO? No. You mean here, here? Where do you mean, hedge fund? Why two are considered to be weak? Two equals are considered to be weak and poor. If they're in the same session, then they're poor. If they're in different sessions, they are weak. And you can still have weak levels that aren't at the session highs or lows. For instance, this right here. So I'm going to just draw a little box for you and see how many candles we come pretty close to without cleaning. So there, all the way through that. That's 4, and arguably anybody that took a position here, they looked at something up here as their invalidation. We got a lot of stops above. Even though it's not the session highs, it still is weak if price trades back to it. You know, have a lot of positions that will likely be closing out. Is it, you know, liquidations? Is it just stop losses? Is it some breakout traders on top of that? You know, we're starting to reclaim a level potentially. Or some combination of that. You got to look at order flow to really interpret the intensity of the move and the intent of the market. You know, who's actually piling in. Is it, you know, consistent across the entire market, or is it just one exchange or a few entities that are just giga positioned or aggressively taking positions to maybe run some stops or something. Snow Legend, I prioritize volume POC. Mostly I prioritize volume over TPO, but I do kind of lean a little bit more towards TPO for like CME and like S&P ES in the kind of intraday setups. Yeah, and I picked that up from KIMBA and his emphasis on it, and it seems to work pretty well, and it keeps your chart a little bit cleaner also. I'll still mark the volume levels, but I'll lean towards the TPO ones. A lot of the equities traders utilize TPO a little more than maybe we rely upon them. Yeah, 3 or more, really 2 or more technically, but to be a strong higher or low, 3 is looking a lot better. And the more TPOs you have at those highs or lows, the better or stronger that it is. Yeah, so like here, you know, that's different sessions, so this can be quite a bit longer, that low. But you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and $70 rows. It's like $500. Here we go. How big is that wick? Oh no. Oh, I did $40 row size. Yep. My bad. Single box at the top. That's technically poor, yeah. The more singles that you have at the highs or lows, the stronger it is. The more paired you have at a higher low, the worse it is. The more poor it is. And I'm trying to look for anywhere that we have a couple of highs and lows that are pretty close. Yeah, so there's one with 2, that's poor. 1, that's poor. Over here, I mean, we didn't go anywhere during those couple of days, so they're all not that nice looking. Yeah, those are poor. And it was a consolidation. It's pretty typical. It was probably a weekend. I don't know. Was it? Oh, Friday, Saturday, and then we started moving out on the Sunday. Poor again. East Coast people, I hear fireworks, but I think it's just the it's not the official show. Yeah, I'm holding y'all too long. Production team, you want me to get out of here? How you doing? Shout out to y'all grinding all day long and still here with me at 9 o'clock East Coast time. Okay, let's wrap it up. Any last questions? There's going to be a lot more of this. A lot more juice. Come to PSG. Join the Discord if you haven't yet. Go to the dashboard. TPO configurations. Okay, I'll show you my preferred one. If it's not an auto, oh, wait, you're asking for the configuration. Do you want it Snow Legend? Oh wait, who said that? Vital. Do you want it for single prints or you want it for highs and lows? Single prints, smaller row size. So depending on what you're looking at, but I'll do like $20 rows on Binance and Coinbase. 2,000 ticks per row is $20 row size. Yeah, you can kind of do the math with it. It's 200 if you're looking at Binance Perps. Yeah, but if I'm kind of looking for a good blend, I'll do like 25 all the way up to 48, and it really just depends on the range that I'm looking at the TPOs in. So like on a big expansion day like this, you can't see any attributes of the profile except for the single prints in a case like that, and you can't really assess the highs and the lows as well. If you can identify that you got a number of highs and lows at the same area and don't need to necessarily see the profile to recognize this, then definitely lower row sizes, Gucci. Different TPO settings for CME, yeah, for sure. Mine are like 10 ticks per row or 9. Yeah, they have it quite a bit different in CME. Yeah, so they defaulted in 30. What in the world? Oh, it's because I have it on. There you go. Yeah, there's all kind of business going on. Oh, here we go. A little bit better. Yeah, and I like it a little bit smaller. I like slimmer profile so I can see the single prints and stuff, or more of the single prints. Yeah, so I'll go like 8 to 10 on CME for my own preference. And then you see KIMBA, he looks at it in RTH profiles also. On my CME like main chart that I look at, I do the same. If it'll calculate and you're just caring about single prints, if you don't care about the appearance of the profile, you can even make your profiles completely transparent, and you can just see your single prints. Yeah, the one thing is it only marks the origin of that single print. So like on this one, you get your box, you still kind of gotta detect it. And if you have a lot of marks on your chart, like the single prints aren't going to be as wide. For Sol, it's 10. Probably. I think I go a little bit wider with Sol one, but I was trying to like show a clean chart. Try to remember which one I don't have as marked up for Sol. This one probably. Yeah, 10 probably looks pretty good. Yeah, if you're just caring about single prints and value areas, because you get the precision of the value areas and point of controls, it is a little bit closer. That will fluctuate some if you change your tick size. Same thing if you're talking about volume profiles. But you're really splitting hairs if you're trying to get that kind of precision, because you know there's so many different exchanges that trade the same thing that there's going to be variation at all, and so having a range is just fine usually. Yeah, it's funny, like you kind of go through this curve of being like very, very particular about it and then loosening out quite a bit. Shout out to Useless Lions Records. Shout out to that talent show. It was freaking amazing. Separate for RTH and all day? Yes. Yeah, zero sum. I put both of them on the chart. Cage, actually, he runs them for all the different sessions. At least he used to. Yeah. I can't do it for all the profiles. But definitely I'll run like the daily one and the RTH one. Pretty ugly low locally and on slightly higher time frame. So you hold that, start to reclaim up here. I wouldn't hold my breath for 104 just yet, but start closing down here. We break down here looking for a swing fail, maybe. If we start closing down here, then maybe looking at a failed auction. But you know the plan. Exclamation highlights Exclamation, Kimba's been talking about this all week. Exclamation, Cage and Houston been talking about this all week. Exclamation, Discord, we've been talking about this all week in the PSG. You know what time it is. Cage wins in his chart wizardry. You know, his geometry is like, sometimes, what, I understand it. I don't think that we're going to see too much spikes in volume on 4th of July at 21:15 New York time. But maybe through the weekend. You kind of want to see some shorts getting underwater, if anything, if you want some bullish momentum. All right, y'all, I'm going to let Houston and Cage get to it. Catch up on the highlights if you missed anything today. And if you didn't see anything today, if you weren't here for some of the day, then you definitely missed something, because today was Giga Juice. What an amazing day. Thank you so much to the team. Thank you, Houston and Cage. Shout out to y'all. Your shows were incredible. So entertaining. So much fun. Community. Next level. Unbelievable. Crypto Jammies, what's up? I haven't seen you all day. Yep, Sprinkler. I've seen people do that. That's cool. Shout out to KIMBA. Thank you so much. Thank you every day. Every day is juice here. Amazing community. There's so much to give, so much that you can learn here. Great times and a great sense of community here. Become a family after a while. Join the Discord, go to the dashboard. There's a lot of resources there. You know, we get some great deals on the exchanges. So if you haven't joined up, KIMBA pretty much gets you as good of fees as can be gotten. Yep. So it's worth it for that, even if, you know, you're just kind of learning, especially if you're, you know, kind of an active trader and concerned with fees. But yeah, this community has so much juice for you, and it's only just beginning. Yep, expanding the hours with nerdouts and talent shows and game shows, changing up the content, adding to, you know, kind of make the community a more inclusive place for all the international lions. You know, we got to get those early morning things. Roscoe, absolutely. Shout out to the other mods and admins. Much love. It's been such a great time working with y'all. You guys grind super, super hard. And shout out to all you lions. PSG, stand up. Happy 4th. Much love. I'm going to get out of here. Bulls, Bears, we're all lions.